Hey everyone, it's Ariana from the blog, and here we are, and it is Q&A Wednesday again. This is the 5th episode. It's a chance for me to answer some of the questions that you have for me and chat with you a little bit. So today's question is from Sandra, and she asked me, will you ever come back to North America? Do you plan to be nomads forever, or will you choose somewhere to put down roots? I actually really love this question because it's a question that I find myself thinking about a lot. And this is something that Jeff and I frequently talk about. And it's a tricky one. To answer it simply, no, I don't think we'll be nomads forever. I think that we will find a place to put roots down. And I don't know if that will be in North America or not. When we first decided to become expats, we really took the long view, and we moved to Germany in 2010. And I think that at that point, we really were planning on being there for a long time. And it was kind of when we arrived in Germany, we'd never been there before. And so when we showed up, it was to live there. And I think that our perspective was, well, let's give this our best shot, and maybe it could last indefinitely. If you've been following along for much time at all, then you probably know that that did not pan out how we had envisioned. My husband lost his job about 6 months or 7 months after we had arrived, after sort of selling everything and really sort of closing down shop in the U.S. And 7 months later, we were back in the States looking for a new job. So that's how we ended up in England. I never, how do I put this? I had never wanted to live in England. And in fact, when there were openings and we were looking for jobs overseas, I had felt kind of like, well, I definitely want to move overseas, but probably not to England. But it's amazing how things can change. So when my husband lost his job and needed a job, and there was an opening here, of course, this was our dream job. It was exactly what we wanted and needed. And when we got here, we were really thankful for it. And we're still extremely thankful for the job. And I've kind of learned, because I also didn't think I ever wanted to live in Germany, although by the time that possibility arose, I was open to it also. And I actually really love Germany. So I've kind of learned that you just don't really know. You may have some assumptions in life about what you would or wouldn't do, but there's really no way of knowing. And life is so dynamic, and so are we as people. And so our needs change and our desires change. And I can't even predict what I'm going to want in 5 years, let alone 10 years. So our sort of thing right now is just kind of enjoying. I mean, we're young, we're in our mid to late 30s, we have an 8-year-old, we're pretty mobile at this point, and it's a really fun time, especially as parents, to be able to show Amelia as much of the world as we can. And I also recognize that in about 10 years, she's going to go to college somewhere, and she's going to, pick up her own life and do her own thing. And this is a chance for us. We've got about 10 more years with her to have as many exciting adventures and experiences as we can together as a family, and then down the line, we're all going to be adults, and I don't know where she'll want to live necessarily, but we'll want to be near her, I think. And it just kind of depends. So right now that it's the 3 of us, we really feel like this is a great opportunity to see as much of the world as we can, to learn, about other cultures and to have new experiences. And I would want to do this at any point in my life, but I feel pretty strongly that I want to do this while my daughter is young. So that said, do I want to be nomadic for a long time? I don't know about that one. We've lived in England now for 3 years, and 3 years is a lot of stability in my book, because I've never lived in a house for more than 3 years in my life, and I've lived in this house for almost 3 years. So this feels super, super long-term already, and for me, I could definitely go for a new adventure at this point. for my husband, he's the kind of guy that had like the opposite experience of me and grew up in the same house, you know, his whole life until he was 18. So this doesn't feel quite as long-term to him, but we're both just really open to whatever comes up. Right now we're waiting kind of on pins and needles, actually, to find out if he is going to get a job as an educator at the schools on base here. And there's also a remote possibility that he could be offered a job in another country, and we would take it in a heartbeat. It would be nice to get a job locally because that would be easier. And that's pretty much the main bonus. It'd be easier. But if somebody gave us the opportunity to move somewhere else and it was a good job, we would take it, because I really just want to see and do more, and I feel that we've gotten a pretty good sense of England so far, and I'm just ready for something new. That said, I'm also thankful for our life here and definitely fine with staying. But there are parts of me that think, well, you know, am I more comfortable in England or am I more comfortable in the USA? So if it was a choice between England and the US long term, it would probably be the US, but I'm not positive yet. If it was a choice between the US and another country, it would be another country. And obviously, if it was a choice between England and another country, we'd choose another country, kind of depending. I do have, you know, a few places that I don't want to live, but I also feel really open to lots of things. And kind of in the same vein as earlier, I really would love for Amelia to be able to learn a second language. And she had learned a lot of German just in the short time that we were there. And she forgot it, you know, pretty much as quickly as she learned it, which is really normal. But I grew up speaking a second language, and I learned a third language early on. And I feel like that's something really valuable that you can give your kids if you get the chance. So I would love it if we could move to Spain or Italy or back to Germany, or a lot of different places. And I think, speaking of nomadicism, I would actually really love to find a country that felt like home to me. The U.S. never totally felt that way because I grew up between countries in the Philippines and the U.S., and the Philippines wasn't really truly my home either because I was always a foreigner. And so I think I have this dream of someday sort of finding that place where I just feel really at home, and my family does too, where we can build a strong sense of community. And, you know, maybe that will be in the U.S. at some point, but we don't feel particularly tied to one place. I mean, Jeff is from Central California, and I'm from Los Angeles area. And we have some relatives in Southern California, but we also have family in the Pacific Northwest, in both Oregon and Washington. And I have family in the Midwest in 2 different states. And then I have my parents live in the Philippines. And so we just feel pretty open to the sorts of places that we could live. And I guess, you know, like I said earlier, you just don't know what life is going to look like for you. But I have sort of my ideals and my dreams of a community for sure. And if it would be possible to find that here in Europe, then I don't feel the need to go back and live in the U.S. I think maybe in 10 years we may reevaluate, you know, especially depending on what Amelia is doing. And I have always dreamed of living closer to my siblings. I have 6 siblings, and they all live in different places. So there's no sort of one place to be. And I guess I'm kind of rambling at this point, saying some of the same things over and over again, but some things that we're trying to do to make that sense of community stronger, I guess, is I really want to go back to the U.S. every year or every 2 years. So far it's been 3 years since we were able to see our families in the U.S., and that is just way too long. and we've had some family members come visit us, and that was nice. But I just feel like we need to go back there, and we need to be able to let Amelia touch base with her home country, and for us as well. So that's something that's kind of a personal goal for me right now, is for me to be able to save up enough money each year for us all to be able to go back home. And so far so good, and I know we'll definitely get to go back to the US at some point this year, and if not this summer, then at Thanksgiving. So that's kind of our short-term, long-term plan, is just looking for a new way to live, I guess, or looking for a new community, whether it's here or in another country. And also sort of trying to bridge that gap between our community in the US and here by just showing up more. And of course, things like Skype and easy phone calls make that much easier. But in the long term, I just don't know that living in the US is worth it to me in exchange for all of the interesting things that we get to do as a family, and all the things that we're learning about the world and learning about ourselves. And so expat life definitely agrees with us. There are really hard parts to it, and I really do feel homesick a lot of times. But so far, I think that we're coming out ahead according to the things that we really want in life. And so we'll just kind of keep doing it, but in a very loose, non-committal way. And ultimately, I think my dream would be to be independent of employers, and maybe for Jeff and I to each have our own businesses that we could run mobilely via the internet. And that's something that we've been sort of talking about and dreaming about a little bit together, so that we could choose and we would have a lot more freedom to travel, and including spending more time in the US. At this point, that's still just dream stage, but I think it's definitely an option for us if we really work for it. So I hope that kind of answers your question, and I feel like there's probably a lot more we could talk about. So just leave your comments after this video, and I'd love to chat about it. And I'm especially interested to hear from other expats. I mean, what's your game plan? Would you want to do it indefinitely? Is it sort of like an adventure that you've set out on for 2 years or 4 years? Or kind of how are you approaching it? And for those of you who would like to live overseas, I hear a lot from you guys about wanting to live overseas and to be expats. When you think of that, what is it that you're thinking of? Are you thinking of long term? Are you thinking of 1 year, 4 years? And what are your kind of hopes or goals with that? So I think it's a really interesting conversation. And, we just live in such a different time now where this is an option, sort of going back and forth. And especially because my husband has a job with the U.S. government, that he has the option of sort of switching back and forth, and so it's kind of a fascinating modern issue to just have that choice of where you want to work and live. So anyway, be sure to talk to me in the comments, and please ask me some more questions so I know what to chat with you about next week. And thank you for listening. Bye.